Hey, mathematicians, and today we are going to be talking about another specific kind of lines. We are going to be talking about perpendicular lines. Before we get into our lesson and our activity for today, let's go over our I will statements. Remember, your I will statements are your goals for this lesson. They are what we are trying to work on and learn more about throughout our time together today. As we continue on in our lesson, make sure you have your mind focused on these three things and showing them to your teacher. I will read the I will statement first, and then we will read it again a second time together. Make sure you're reading it nice and loudly so I can hear you, but no shouting necessary. Listen as I read it first. I will identify perpendicular lines. Say it with me. I will identify perpendicular lines. Good job. Let's say the next one. Listen first. I will define perpendicular lines. Say it with me. I will define perpendicular lines. That's our newest vocabulary word, perpendicular lines. We'll be saying that a lot today. Our last I will statement, listen first. I will draw perpendicular lines. You say it. I will draw perpendicular lines. Good job, mathematicians. Let's get into our review activity for today. You are going to need your whiteboards for this activity. For this activity, I'm going to draw a type of line on the board. I'm going to draw a line segment, a line, array, one of the three. Your job is to write how to identify the symbol. So you're going to write the symbol for what the line is. Let me show you an example. I'm going to always start with points A and B. I'm going to always have those 2 points. If I were to draw this is a line because it has 2 arrows. Your job on your whiteboards is to draw the symbol and hold it up. That means I'll see the 2 letters and you'll draw a tiny line across the top. That's the symbol for a line. Let's practice. If I took off of, here, I'll erase that one. If I took off the arrows and our line ended at both of our dots, this would be a line segment. To write the symbol for a line segment, you put the 2 letters we're using and you draw a tiny line segment above it. While I draw these, pause the screen so that you have a chance to write the symbols down and hold them up on your whiteboards. Let's start with our first one. We'll stick with A, B for now. I'm going to draw a line segment. Write the answer or symbol on your board for this. To show a line segment, you would write the 2 letters, and above it, you would redraw a small line segment. So there would be 2 dots and a line going between them. Nicely done. What if this line segment continued? And this line segment continued past the B. This is array. To write the symbol for array, I still use the letters that I see. I have to put a dot over the A because I see a dot over the A here. When I look past the B, I see past the dot, there's a arrow. So I draw the arrow going over the B. This shows us that there is a ray labeled A, B. We don't know how long it is until we see the actual ray. Let's try a new one. I'm going to change our points. Our points are now going to be C, D. So we have C, D. If I drew a line across CD. How would you draw the symbol for a line? You'd need to rewrite the letters we have, and then you draw a line over the top. Both of these have an arrow on both sides, so we need to have an arrow in our symbol. Let's do one more. If I took that part away, and this point or line ended on point D to give us a ray, how would I write this? I use the same letters I have, C and D. If I look on C side, I can see an arrow going past C. And on D side, we have the dot on the top representing the ray. When you write the symbol for a ray, it's important that your arrow always goes over whatever letter it is going over in the actual problem. So here our arrow goes past C, and in our symbol, our arrow also goes past C. Good job practicing with our two-dimensional figures and our new line vocabulary. We are going to start talking about our new material today. Before we get into our new material and learning some new vocabulary words, I want you to look at the picture I drew on my whiteboard. You don't need to write or draw anything right now, but I want you to pause the video and have a discussion as class. Come up with a list. What do you see on the whiteboard right now? I'll give you some of my examples when you guys come back. I see lots of different things when looking at this picture on my board. I see a right angle. I see two line segments and four right angles in the middle. I see a cross, a lowercase t, a plus sign. There's so many options you could have added to your list. I want you to draw this plus sign on your boards now. Use your straight edge to make it look just like mine. In the middle, we're going to add a point and we're going to label it E. We're going to label it the letter E. We also have endpoints to each of our lines. Let's put a point on that so we can see it a little bit better. Remember, your points are never too big. Let's label our lines. A, B, C, and D. Now that we have our different lines, we made different line segments and we can list out their names. We have different lines from A to E. When we draw a line segment, remember, we look at the dots, the letters they land on, and we draw the symbol above it. I'm going to actually lower this so we can see it and see all of our big T over here as well. We have lots of different options and we can keep going. We have B and E, and that's another line segment, so we put the two dots over it. We have, you can go backwards then, E to B. We also have E to C. Are there more that you guys can come up with as a class? There are more line segments that we can find in this picture, including D to E, E to D. You can flip these around as well so that you can see all of the different line segments. Now, looking around your classrooms and looking at a few real-life examples here, let's talk about right angles. A right angle is when two straight edges come together and they form a 90-degree angle. Different things that have 90-degree angles might be the floor tiles in your classroom. The squares on grid paper are also another good example. Here are some real-life examples of where you might see right angles in the real world. When two lines intersect, like we see here, They make a right angle. You'll see these examples on your grid paper, or I see these when I look out my windows and I have lines across my windows. These all meet at a right angle, making a 90-degree angle and making these lines perpendicular lines. Say that word with me. Perpendicular. Perpendicular are when two lines cross each other's paths and they make a 90-degree angle. They're called perpendicular lines. We saw that a lot in our I will statements at the beginning of the class. If I were to draw two lines like this, these would not be considered perpendicular lines because where they meet, they do not make right angles. Instead, they make acute angles here and obtuse angles on the other side. These aren't called perpendicular lines. It needs to have a right angle where the lines cross in order to be a perpendicular line. These are just called intersecting lines, right? Say that with me. Intersecting lines. To be an intersecting line, it means you cross paths at some point with another line. So you cross paths at another point with another line. Lines are everywhere. They're even in our alphabet. I chose 3 letters, T, L, and V. Some of them represent my favorite things: tacos, llamas, and Venezuelan food. Looking at these 3 letters, I can break them down and make some different observations. First, the letters T, the capital T, and the capital L, they both meet, their lines meet to make right angles. Since both of those lines meet at some point and they make a right angle, the T and L both have perpendicular lines. They have perpendicular lines because they meet and they meet at a right angle. If we look at our letter V over here, it does not have a right angle. Does anyone know what kind of angle this is? This is an acute angle. It's smaller than a right angle. So that means these are not perpendicular lines in our letter V. Instead, they're just intersecting lines. You guys are going to continue your practice today identifying perpendicular lines between intersecting lines. Remember, the biggest difference is perpendicular lines have that right angle in them. Think about those examples in your real life and look around your classroom to see if you can find any of those corners. Those are going to help you find your perpendicular lines and might help you identify some examples throughout your lesson today. Good luck, mathematicians. You guys got this.